And for more on the gathering Alibaba momentum, we're joined by Denmark West advisor at K1 Capital. Denmark, great to have you back.
Thank you for having me back.
The big roadshow began today, New York, Waldorf Astoria. Over 800 people in attendance by some counts. The lines were snaking right out the hotel, down the escalators.
It's like an iPhone launch.
It's bigger than an iPhone launch. What did you hear? How did day one go?
So from what I hear, it went pretty well. You know, Jack Ma apparently had some jokes to break the ice. He tried to do what he was supposed to do, which is to give people comfort. At the end of the day, the biggest bet that people are making is on management, especially since you have a Chinese company that's being listed in the U.S. So the primary concern for him was, can I get people comfortable? Can I show the story, and can I show the vision? And the first day seems like he's made great strides.
So you think he managed to convey that message? What do you think is the top investor concern? You mentioned the VIE structure.
So I think that the top concern is really around management control and management process. So it's a question of focus and discipline. Now, the VIE structure only exacerbates that particular concern. In part because the variable interest entities, as they're referred to, don't allow for foreign investors to have a real stake in the company.
And that's typical to China only.
And that's typical to China only. And so now, if you have any downside scenarios where things actually just go poorly, you don't have the same relationship that you would in a U.S. company where you have a direct investment. Now, if you don't have that downside protection, you have to be very comfortable that management has your best interests at heart,
right,
that they're highly disciplined and they're highly focused.
You know, speaking of management, Jack Ma said in the past and in his recent letter that at Alibaba, it's customer first, employee second, and investors third. Is that coming to bite him now?
So, ironically, I remember there was somebody else that came with a very similar attitude. His name was Mark Zuckerberg. And he was actually very much focused on the consumer scenario, and he almost had a flippant attitude towards Wall Street. Now, it's amazing how fast things change, right? I think that you could argue that over the last couple of years that Facebook has been one of the more shareholder-friendly organizations, both in terms of their transparency and in terms of their focus on the issue.
So you're saying we really shouldn't take him at his word on that one?
I think people have the right to change their minds based upon a change in circumstances.
Well, one of the other issues of concern is the prospectus contained some monopoly and anti-competitive language.
Absolutely.
Are investors concerned about the potential for government intervention?
I think that this is a unique situation as opposed to other scenarios where you have a market leader. This isn't just market leadership, this is market dominance. So as I'm sure you know, 80% of the e-commerce in China flows through Alibaba. You know, that's a pretty notable distinction for any market segment. That's pretty much dominant.
Put it in a position that it's a little too big? We keep on referring to it as the behemoth, the giant. Can it be a little too big?
So the short answer is it depends on the government and their perspective, right? And the places where they play. Most of, and I think it's about 90% of their revenue comes from within China. And so this is really a Chinese government decision. Now, what we've seen with historical cases like Microsoft is once you take that monopoly and you export it, that's when it becomes an international consideration, and that's when it becomes fair game for other governments to try to tax you.
So a lot of question marks that investors are just betting, hoping will not materialize.
Well, I think that part of it is it's Jack Ma and the management team's responsibility to try to give people comfort, to try to give them the story, give them the framework, and give them the sense of discipline and focus that's going to give them the comfort that they're going to do the right things.
Now, we know there was a huge turnout today, and financial people are in the know. Everybody in the financial networks is talking about this. But in terms of street value, does Alibaba have brand name recognition amongst retail investors?
Among retail investors?
Here in the U.S.
Retail investors in the U.S., I could make a strong argument that the first time they even heard about Alibaba was when Yahoo divested their first interest a couple of years ago. And that was when it actually came into the mainstream because people started taking the valuation exercise to say, well, how much is Alibaba worth? Well, how much is Yahoo worth? Well, if I believe that Yahoo is worth this much and Alibaba is worth this much, then I'm actually undervaluing Yahoo. And you could argue that much of the rise in Yahoo's valuation over the last 2 years has been due to just the understanding of Alibaba's value.
Well, we will see if those retail investors get in on the action the day after the IPO and how much stock will pop. We're going to have to leave it there, though. Denmark West, advisor at K1 Capital.